This is the Realme Narzo 35G. I've been using it as my primary smartphone for about 2 weeks now, and while I like a lot of what this phone has to offer, there are some things I really dislike too. So what are these things? Well, let's list them all out so that you can make an informed decision on if this is the right mid-ranger for you. Hey guys, Ash here from C4 Tech, and if you do end up liking what you see here, well, you know what to do. So let's get straight to it. First off, as always, the build. A few years back, we were getting 10,000 rupee phones with metal and glass, but sadly, that's not the case anymore. And like with most brands in this segment, we have a plastic back on this Narzo too. From a looks perspective, this raceway strip is something I really like. It adds a little bit of pizzazz, much needed pizzazz to the design. And you know, the entirety of this back is glossy, so it's fingerprints galore. On the flip side, Realme's included a TPU case in the box, so that should help elevate the fingerprint issues a little bit. Now, cause they've gone for a plastic build, one of the side effects is reduced weight. Reduced weight without a compromise on battery capacity. Talking about which, there's a solid 5000 mAh battery here, and it does swimmingly well. It's good enough to the point where this phone kinda messed up my charging habits. 12 in the night, in bed, phone in by the nightstand, I still go, it's the Narzo 35G. I don't care, I'll find it in the morning. That confidence stems from the fact that every time I did this, the next morning I'd find the phone with at least 40% in the tank. That is how good the battery life is. With moderate use, getting through a day on a single charge, it's a breeze. And the included charger, well, it's technically only 18 watts, and you can take that as a negative compared to the competition's 25 or even Realme's own 30-watt chargers. It's still reasonably fast, good enough for the occasional top-up. Now, we were talking about build and I kind of got sidetracked with the battery. So let's return back to the build. The weight here is 185 grams. That makes this phone pretty easy to use. It doesn't feel like you're carrying around a brick. It's still wide and long enough that you're gonna have to use both hands more often than not. But that said, let's say you're on a long call, the wrist fatigue, it's not there because it's 185 grams. And while on the topic of calls, cellular reception, call quality, on point, nothing to complain about. The earpiece BT dub does not double as a speaker. So we only get a single downwards firing speaker, and the output is a little bit on the quieter side of things. I would have preferred it to be a little louder, especially when you compare it to the competition, it's a little noticeable. That said, unlike some of the competition, Realme does justice to that 5G branding you see by including support for 7 bands. So this seems to be a real 5G phone. Appreciate that. Other sundries include the presence of a headphone jack. The output's decent, nothing too special. There's a triple card slot to the left, so dedicated micro SD. The fingerprint scanner is built into the power key. It resides to the right, it's pretty fast and responsive. I never really had any issues with it. Or for that matter, even Face Unlock was as responsive as you could expect it to be. Now, Face Unlock, selfie camera, that's my biggest issue. No, the selfie camera is not my issue, but rather what's on top of the selfie camera. The glass protecting the display, it's not Gorilla Glass, which is okay, not gonna bitch about that a lot. The fact that they've omitted even an oleophobic coating here, this display, it just picks up oily residue from your fingers and it gets smudged real easily. That results in some pictures looking like this, when the actual performance of the selfie camera is this. So as you can see, the 16 megapixel selfie camera here, it does quite well with detail, even with dynamic range, but you're gonna have to constantly wipe off that camera before you accidentally shoot something without even thinking about, just like with any other phone, you just take a selfie and a little while later you see, oh, that's smudged. So now this is also an issue with day-to-day use. This is 2021. I thought we were way past, phone shipping without an oleophobic coating. But sadly, Realme's proved me wrong. And if you can look past this, then this display is actually quite good. The peak brightness is 600 nits, so outdoors under direct sunlight, using it is not an issue. This is not one of those first 90 Hz panels they brought about, which had brightness issues. And yes, this is a 90 Hz panel, 120 Hz touch sampling. It makes everything feel a little more responsive. It's an IPS panel with good color reproductions and, as expected, stellar viewing angles. It's not a pleasantly surprising 720p panel either. It's Full HD. Full HD Plus. So if not for the lack of an oleophobic coating, I'd say Realme has nailed the display aspect here. Now, one common issue with 90Hz panels or just high refresh rate panels in general is on mid-rangers, sometimes the chip inside, it's just not able to output all those frames consistent. Thankfully though, that issue is a non-starter here. The MediaTek Dimensity 700 seems to be a pretty solid SoC. It often ended up outperforming its Qualcomm counterparts in benchmarks. And okay, forget about benchmarks for a minute, because at the end of the day, that's all they are, a benchmark, a number to compare performance. And in the past, we have seen how a phone can bench well, but come apart with actual use. Now, does the Narzo 35G do that though? Nope. It is actually quite smooth to use. The 6 gigs of RAM here does well enough to keep most recent apps in memory. There's even a gimmicky feature to add 2 to 5 gigs of virtual RAM. Given that 6 gigs already, it's not something that I found myself needing, but if you want it, hey, it's an option, it's there. And the storage, that's 128 gigs apart from the dedicated micro SD, of course, so plenty of storage. The software, well, it's Realme UI, what can you say? It's got all the same pros and cons of Realme UI that we've seen in the past. There is a fair bit of preloaded bloat, but all these apps can be uninstalled. Realme does from time to time send out unwanted notifications via its first-party apps, but sadly that seems to be the way of the future. Almost every brand is doing that these days, so I just had to disable the notifications and I was good to go. So it is a con, but it's a common con. Now, barring that, this is a very functional interface, one that's built on Android 11. You could even say it's intuitive. Right from the launcher to the controls, it's all pretty familiar to any other UI you could have used. So no matter which Android phone you're coming from, the learning curve is minimal. You're going to be up and running in no time. And with that, let's get to the cameras. Now, we have 4 cameras.
The fourth circle isn't a camera.
Oh. Yeah, that's just a branding. So we've got 3
one of them is a 2 megapixel depth sensor.
Oh. Okay, one of those is a 2 megapixel depth sensor there to just make up numbers. So we have 2 usable cameras.
Actually, one of them is a macro.
What? Okay, the other one's a macro. Damn it. We've got 1 usable camera to the back. It's a 48 megapixel camera. This one does well though. And a good light, as you can see, the colors are natural, there's ample detail in the shots, and even dynamic range is impressive for a phone in this segment. As the light goes down, the images, for a phone in this segment, again, I still found it impressive. Nightscape helped preserve detail. I wouldn't call it best in class or anything, because I still feel Xiaomi does do better in this segment, especially with low light. But it's definitely better than average. I'd say it falls more on the side of good than bad. So alright, now finally, to sum it all up, what do we have here? A build that I'd call above average. Specs and battery that are excellent. Optics that are again above average. A display that's somewhere between average and good, depending on how much that lack of an oleophobic coating pisses you off. For me, it's average just because that really annoys me. Now, the pricing, it's very competitive, and they've even thrown in some bells and whistles like, you've got 128 gigs of storage, headphone jack. Yes, headphone jack now falls under bells and whistles. There's support for a dedicated micro SD and 7 5G bands. This combination seems like it is worth the asking price. So my 2 cents, if you're looking at a phone in the 15-16K segment, the Narzo 35G should definitely be one you should consider. Realme's mostly got everything right here. There's nothing in particular that's wrong with this phone. It seems like a decent 5G mid-ranger, and that is my take on the Narzo 35G. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we are at the end of today's video. It's time for me to bid you adieu. Thumbs up, thumbs down based on whatever you felt about it. Subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that bell icon if you haven't yet. And thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4 Retech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.